Farming is an activity which contributes to nearly 1/6 of our national GDP, and a major portion of a population is dependent on its livelihood. It has risen to the challenge of making India largely self-sufficient in providing food for a growing population. To make farming competitive and profitable, there is an urgent need to set up investment, both public and private, in agro-technology and development and creation of modernization and easing of agricultural business infrastructure. And Agricultural Research Institute, Pune, has been in the forefront of research in this area. However, since independence, only one of the such centers has been established. Government will establish 2 more such institutions of excellence of similar pattern in Assam and Jharkhand with an initial sum of rupees 100 crores in the current financial years. In addition, an amount of rupees 100 crores is being set aside for setting up an agri-infrastructure fund. It is also proposed to establish agricultural university in Andhra Pradesh and Rajasthan and horticulture university in Telangana and Haryana. An initial amount of 200 crore has been allocated for this purpose. Can we have a, Madam Speaker, can we have a 5-minute break? 5 minutes ke liye. 5 minutes, then I'll continue to read.
Okay. We'll just take a break.
Just 5 minutes break. Please. Yes. Yeah. 5 minutes. This. The House stands adjourned to meet again at 11:50.
Okay, 11.
11:50. 5 minutes. We want some break, no? It's okay.
Okay, but Ratnesh Kumar is still with us of Stancy. He's been listening to the budget with us. It's a 5-minute break, so Ratnesh, very quickly, the markets are showing some disappointment. It's only the real estate stocks that seem to be up. Your first thoughts?
Well, real estate is up because of both the REITs pass-through has been announced, as well as, you had a reduction in the FDI, amounts which were there, both in terms of $10 million going to $5 million, as well as the area. Overall market reaction is what it is. But I think if you look at what has been announced so far, I think really positive is the fact that not only is 4.1% is being stuck to, but as well as there is some roadmap for year ahead and the year after that as well. I think the negative reaction in the market initially might have something to do with the fact that there is obviously an assurance on retro tax.
No repeat.
But probably the market is looking for some more specifics. Maybe when the fine print...
repeal of the...
Whether it's repeal or specifics, that's something I think we'll have to wait for the fine print. But some of the negative reaction could have to do with that.
Okay. Banks are a little disappointed?
Banks, there was some expectation of the bank holding company, which some people had, but they have indeed put out an expectation that the banks will have to raise funds from the market, no capitalization funding from the government. So I would actually take it positive from the macro point of view, obviously not so great for the stocks.
I think we should pull up the bond prices, because that adherence to 4.1 means definitely market borrowing program will not go up. 5.97 lakh crore stands, and even subsequent years fewer government bonds will be issued if it is 3.6. So banks, that may be a bit of an antidote, because there is a book investment which is going to look pricier. Positive on banks, you think?
Well, long term, you can say
it's
that...
a minor positive.
Yeah, long term it's positive for the bank as well as macro overall. But in the near term, clearly no recap from the government means they will have to come to the market more aggressively. to do the recap funding, which
How would an FII react when this is 4.1 and 3.6 and nobody expected him to adhere to 4.1? Is there likely to be a fairly positive response on that?
4.1 is very positive. I think if you look across the board on expectations, I don't think anybody expected them to actually stick to 4.1. There was expectation at least it'll get to 4.3, 4.5, if not more. So the 4.1 is a definite positive in the budget.
Yeah, just to comment on that, but there's an issue on how he will deliver 4.1%. So the quality of fiscal deficit would be an issue. And the first feedback that I got was that this knee-jerk sell-off was because of retro tax not being repealed. We had said that it would be.
Shireen had said this.
Shireen had said this. Even Menka had maintained that it would be tough for him to repeal that, but that's market's reaction for you.
Okay, Shireen, quickly, you want to come in on anything?
Yeah, I just want to, and this is a CNBC TV 18 plug, Lata. We very categorically said that the government will stop short of repealing the retrospective tax law, and that's exactly what's happened. This is the indication that we were getting from all our sources. Also, very quickly, let me just highlight REITs. We said it will happen, and he has proposed incentives for REITs. We said that they will stick with the allocation on the NREGS, and that's exactly what's happened on the NREGS as well. But I think the sense that one is getting at this point in time is that even directionally, because remember, he started his speech by saying that don't expect everything from this budget. We're going to set out a broad policy framework. I think he's getting too much into the social sector details at this point in time, and there is a level of disappointment here within industry as well. But the retrospective tax law, we've been saying it, Anuj, and we've been highlighting it at least for the last week or so, that the retrospective tax law was not going to go, that this government was going to send out a message that we're open for business, that we will provide you a stable tax regime, but they will not repeal the law, and that's exactly what's happened today.
So, Shireen, we've got Sanjay Kapadia of Ernst & Young. We've got Menka also joining us. Sanjay, your quick take. Are you disappointed that there was no repeal of the Retrospective Act, or was that only to be expected? And is the market overreacting there?
So, I think, as everyone expected that it would not be a complete abolition, but having said that, there is no clarity on what will happen to the existing litigation. So, therefore, the litigation will continue, which seems to be not very good news from an investor's perspective, because some clarity around the past litigation
he did say the litigation will be taken up to a higher committee.
Right. No, it says that there will be a committee set up to deal with these issues, because then that will be going forward on how the indirect transfers will then be looked upon.
Sanjay, we got Menka here as well, so you're not impressed by that, Menka?
Not at all. This first part of the budget speech has done nothing for tax, with the exception of two things: REITs and infrastructure trusts, which was something that has been in the pipeline and expected for so long that you don't really tick this off as a big positive for the budget, though it is a positive for all the industries involved in this. And the second thing is extending advanced rulings to residents. That's a positive. It's not material. It's not going to move your markets in any way, but it is a positive. Now, there are other problems with advanced rulings. He said he's going to introduce new benches, etc. But there is no direct, immediate benefit from this, with the exception of those, the relief that now domestic taxpayers can go, and he said within a certain threshold, we don't know what the thresholds are as yet, can go and seek an advanced ruling on certain matters, I suppose of certain sizes in terms of transaction ticket sizes. So that's important. Retroactive tax, only to focus on that 2012 indirect transfer bit, when there have been over 100 retroactive changes in the last 2 years or 3 years, is fairly disappointing in terms of what he's
done. But the commitment that they're against retroactive taxes, give them a little more time and they'll look at all of that.
Yeah, I know, but we've got thousands and thousands of crores.
Okay, all right, we've got Mr. Jaitley back in the chair.
Of farming resources. Government will initiate a scheme to provide to every farmer a soil health card at a mission mode. I propose to set aside a sum of rupees 100 crore for this purpose, and an additional 56 crores to set up 100 mobile soil testing laboratories across the country. There has been a growing concern about the imbalance in the utilization of different types of fertilizers, resulting in the deterioration of the soil. Climate change is a reality which all of us have to face together. Agriculture as an activity is most prone to the vagaries of climate change. To meet this challenge, I propose to establish a national adaptation fund for climate change. As an initial sum of rupees 100 crores will be transferred to the fund. We are committed to sustaining a growth of 4% in agriculture, and for this we will bring technology-driven second green revolution with focus on higher productivity and include a protein revolution in an area of major focus. As a large number of landless farmers are unable to provide land title as guarantee, institutional finance is denied to them and they become vulnerable to moneylenders. Usurious lending. I propose to provide finance to 5 lakh joint farming groups of Bhumihin Kisan through NABARD in the current financial year. Price volatility in agriculture produces and creates certain uncertainties and hardships to the farmers. To mitigate this, I am providing a sum of rupees 500 crores for establishing a price stabilization fund. The farmers' and consumers' interests will be further served by increasing competition and integrating markets across the country. To accelerate the setting up of a national market, the central government will work closely with the state governments to reorient their respective APMCs to provide the establishment of a private markets. The state government will also be encouraged to develop farmers markets in townships to enable the farmers to sell their products directly. I propose to set aside a sum of rupees 50 crores for development of indigenous cattle breeding and an equal opportunity of starting a blue revolution in inland fisheries. Banks are providing strong credit support to agricultural sector. A target of 8 lakh crores has been set aside for agriculture credit during 2014-15, for which I am confident that banks will surpass. Under the interest subvention scheme for short-term crop loans, banks are extending loans to farmers at a concessional rate of 7%. The farmers will get a further incentive of 3% for timely repayment. I propose to continue the scheme for 2014-15. NABARD operates the Rural Infrastructure Development Fund out of a priority sector lending shortfall of banks, which helps in creation of infrastructure in agriculture and rural sectors across the country. I propose to raise the corpus of RIDF by an additional 5,000 crores from the target given in the interim budget of 25,000 crores in the current financial year. Increasing warehousing capacity for increasing the shelf life of agriculture produces and thereby earning capacity of the farmers is utmost importance. Keeping in view the urgent need of availability of scientific warehousing infrastructure in the country, I propose an allocation of rupees 5,000 crores for the fund for the year 2014-15. The share of long-term investment credit in agriculture is going down as compared to short-term crop loan. This is severely hampering the asset creation in agriculture and allied activities. In order to give a boost to long-term investment credit in agriculture, I propose to set up a long-term rural credit fund in NABARD for the purposes of providing refinance support to cooperative banks and regional rural banks with an initial corpus of 5,000 crores. The short-term cooperative rural credit refinance fund was introduced in the union budget of 2008 and 9 with initial corpus of 5,000 crores. In order to ensure increased and uninterrupted credit flow to farmers and to avoid a high cost of market borrowings by NABARD, I propose to allocate an amount of rupees 5,000 crores for the STRC fund during 2014-15. The issue of profitability of small holdings-based agriculture has assumed importance in view of increasing proportion of small and marginal farmers in the country. I propose to supplement NABARD's Producers Organization Development Fund for Producers Development and Upliftment called Produce with a sum of rupees 200 crores, which will be utilized for building 2,000 producers organizations across the country over the next 2 years. Government is committed to reform in the food sector. Restructuring FCI, reducing transportation and distribution losses, and efficacy of PDS would be taken up on priority. Government is also committed to provide wheat and rice at a reasonable price to the weaker sections of the society. Even if due to inadequate rainfall, there is a marginal decline in agricultural production, stocks in the central pool are adequate to meet the exigency. Government shall, when required, undertake open market sales to keep prices under control. Kisan Television, dedicated to the interest of agriculture and allied sectors, will be launched in the current year. This will disseminate real-time information to the farmers, information regarding new farming techniques, water conservation, organic framing. I propose to set aside a sum of rupees 100 crores for this purpose. The e-biz industry. The e-biz platform aids to create a business and investor-friendly ecosystem in India by making all businesses and investments related to clearance and compliances available to 24/7 single portal with an integrated payment gateway. All central government departments and ministries will integrate their services with the e-biz platform on priority by 31st December this year. A national industrial corridor with its headquarters at Pune is being set up to coordinate the deployment of the industrial corridors with smart cities linked to the transport connectivity, which will be the cornerstone of the strategy to drive India's growth in manufacturing and urbanization. I have provided an initial corpus of rupees 100 crores for this purpose. The Amritsar-Kolkata industrial master planning will be completed expeditiously for establishment of an industrial smart cities in 7 states of India. The master planning of these 3 smart cities is the Chennai-Bengaluru Industrial Corridor region, the Pune in Tamil Nadu, Krishnapatnam in Andhra Pradesh, Tumkur in Karnataka will also be completed. The prospective plan for the Bengaluru-Mumbai Economic Corridor and the Vizag-Chennai Corridor would be completed with the provision of 20 new industrial clusters. Kakinada, its adjoining area, and the port will be developed as key drivers of economic growth in the region with special focus on hardware manufacturing. Exports cannot be exponentially increased unless states play a very active role in export promotion by providing good infrastructure and full facilitation. It will be our endeavour to engage the states to take India's export to a higher growth trajectory. It is proposed to establish an export promotion mission to bring all stakeholders under one umbrella. The government is committed to revive the special economic zones and make them effective instruments of industrial production, economic growth, export promotion and employment generation. For achieving this, effective steps would be undertaken to operationalize the special economic zones, to revive the investors' interest, to develop better infrastructure, to effectively and efficiently use the available unutilized land. Comparing the size of Indian economy, the performance of the apprenticeship training scheme is not satisfactory, and a large number of training facilities in industry are unutilized. Apprenticeship Act will be suitably amended to make it more responsive to the industry and youth. It will also encourage the MSMEs to avail of the benefits under the scheme. The SMEs form the backbone of our economy. They account for a large portion of our industrial output and employment. The bulk of service sector enterprises are also SMEs. Most of our SMEs own account enterprises. Most importantly, a majority of these enterprises are owned and run by SCs, STs and OBCs. Financing of this sector is of critical importance, particularly as it benefits the weakest section. There is a need to examine the financial architecture for this sector. I propose to appoint a committee with representatives from the Finance Ministry, Ministry of MSME, RBI to give concrete suggestions in 3 months. Promotion of entrepreneurship and startup companies remains a challenge. While there has been some effort to encourage, one of the principal limitations has been of startup capital by way of equity to be brought in by promoters. In order to create a conducive ecosystem for a venture capital in the MSME sector, it is proposed to establish a rupees 10,000 crore fund to act as a catalyst to attract private capital by way of providing equity, quasi-equity, soft loan and other risk capitals for startup companies. To establish center network to promote innovation, entrepreneurship and agro industries, I propose to set up a fund with a corpus of 200 crores. The definition of MSME will be revived to provide for a higher capital ceiling. A program to facilitate forward and backward linkages with multiple value chains manufacturing and service delivery will also be put in place. Entrepreneurship-friendly legal bankruptcy framework will also be developed for SMEs to enable easy exit. A nationwide district-level incubation and accelerator program would be taken up for an incubation and new ideas and providing necessary support for accelerating entrepreneurs. I propose to set up Trade Facilitation Center and a craft center with a museum with an outlay of 50 crores to develop and promote handloom products and carry out the rich tradition of handlooms of Varanasi, where I intend to support textile mega clusters. I also propose to set up 6 more textiles clusters in Bareilly, Lucknow, Surat, Kutch, Bhagalpur, Mysore and in Tamil Nadu. I am allocating a sum of rupees 200 crores for this purpose. I also propose I also propose to set up a Hastakala Academy for preservation, revival and documentation of the handloom handicraft sector in the PPP mode in Delhi. I have set aside a sum of rupees 30 crores for this purpose. I propose to set up a Pashmina production program P3 and a program for development of other crafts in Jammu and Kashmir. I have set aside a sum of rupees 50 crores for this purpose. India has emerged the largest PPP market in the world with over 900 projects at various stages of infrastructure development. PPCs have delivered some iconic infrastructures like airports, ports, highways, which are seen as models for development globally. But we have also seen the weakness of the PPP framework and the rigidities of the contractual arrangements, the need to develop more nuanced and sophisticated models for contracting and quick dispute redressal mechanism. An institution to provide support for mainstreaming PPCs called the 3P India will be set up with a corpus of 500 crores. Shipping. A policy for encouraging the growth of Indian-controlled tonnage will be formulated to ensure increase in employment of Indian seafarers. Development of ports is also critical to boosting trade. 16 new port projects are proposed to be awarded this year, and a focus on port connectivity, rupees 11,635 crores, will be allocated for the development of the outer harbour projects in Tuticorin for Phase 1. SEZs will also be developed in Kandla and JNPT. A comprehensive policy will also be announced to promote Indian shipbuilding industry in current financial year.